Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is me going live once again, now in just 2 day intervals, a new record for a lazy bum like me. But no, seriously, this is Martek, and I'm so excited to be creating content on the regular. And today is not a reaction to some recent Apple news, it's more of a forward facing video talking about what I expect the iPhone 15, or more specifically the iPhone 15 Ultra, to be and what I want it to be. Right, but I'm gonna create a wish list that is somewhat realistic, that is based on rumors that we pretty much have, and I'm not gonna go overly crazy and invent specs that I know just simply don't exist on the market. Now, I believe after a couple of times I've now figured out OBS. I have it next to me as well, so I can comment or react to your comments and questions. I hope the quality and the latency are okay. My internet has been acting up a little bit, so if it's more latency than usual, it's not my fault. And if I still need to reduce resolution to make latency more bearable, please let me know in the comments or on Twitter. As per usual, the link to this video is also on Twitter, so if you follow me there, you will know first when I go live in the future. So, a couple of things at the beginning. I will use the Mac Rumors iPhone 15 basically rumor aggregation site. They do have pretty much the newest one. It was updated on January 10th. So we have seen very little since then, but if there is, I will probably remember it midstream and it will be as chaotic as usual. And the other, and that is the iPhone in my actual thumbnail. I didn't create it, it's from a German site called Netzwelt. I have tried to use a couple of other renders. It's pretty chaotic to actually copy paste stuff that is rendered. I don't know. My usual, like I work with Pixelmator on my iPad, somehow didn't want to do it in a good way. Regardless, this is the video. The thumbnail shows a little bit of what to expect, but most importantly will be the stuff that we are talking about. And I apologize for the ads here. I do have an ad blocker on, but yeah, having like a white space in the middle of the screen isn't too great either. So just let me know in the future if I do something like that, where I have an entire website open, like what you would like to see me do with the ads. But without further ado, let's talk about the iPhone 15 lineup, likely coming this September, and specifically its flagship, the iPhone 15 Ultra. Once I briefly aggregate like what we are supposed to get on the base iPhone 15 as well. So their Mac Rumors summarizes this as they're expected to get USB-C instead of Lightning. That is partially because of European laws. So Apple will be forced to switch to USB-C in 2024. But from all expectations, they will be already doing the switch in 2023 to basically be fully ready and have like an entire USB-C lineup once the actual law goes into effect in 2024. They're talking about solid state volume and power buttons. That is supposed to be pretty similar to what we had with the Touch ID button on the iPhone 7, 8 and then the SE. But now it's supposed to expand to the volume buttons, to the power button, so that the actual button doesn't click, but that you feel a vibration that basically replicates the feeling of a click. To anybody who has no iPhone, but for some reason a MacBook, most recent, basically all MacBooks for years have had solid state trackpads that you don't actually click, but you get a satisfying haptic feedback. New camera technology, we will go into detail on what that means. There is a little bit of a hint of what I want to see in the thumbnail. and obviously more. So rumored features across the board, we will get 6.1 and 6.7 inch sizes. Now that is important because I'm turning the ads off once again. Is because oh my god, those ads. That's important because we did have rumors that Apple is so unhappy with the iPhone 14 Plus sales that they are not gonna basically continue that model anymore. But by this point, it's supposed to be that the lineup for the iPhone 15 is basically decided on, and they are not going to change production just because one model sold a little poorer this year. So it remains to be seen where some price changes in the lineup will maybe rectify those poorer sales. Something that should also help with the sales on the non-Pro iPhones is them also getting dynamic island, so them having a more immersive screen experience. Then we're supposed to be getting a periscope zoom lens, probably just on the Ultra, but definitely either just on the Ultra or maybe on the lower end, the smaller Pro as well. And there are rumors that the iPhone 16, I know that's kind of crazy to be talking about it already, is supposed to then get periscope zoom lens on both the Pro and the Pro Max / Ultra. And that again is also what is a little confusing this year. A lot of rumors have started talking about an iPhone Ultra, which will supposedly replace the Pro Max branding, similar to how the Apple Watch Ultra now exists. And it will be a little more in line with some of the Xiaomi and Samsung phones that have Ultra on the highest end. So maybe Apple is afraid that like Pro will not seem as premium, but I'm not sure. The next is USB-C, also on my thumbnail, but not in the position where it is on my thumbnail. USB-C replacing Lightning. Here, obviously, also the question of what transfer and what charging speeds will it get. Remember, guys, to hydrate so that your voice doesn't give up like mine. So, and it's supposed to have a Qualcomm modem chip. We did have some recent rumors on Apple creating their own Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cellular modems. The first one of them is supposed to be the cellular one, and that one was supposed to be ready by 2023, but by all accounts it will be either 2024 or 2025, where we will get Apple's first own in-house designed 5G modem based on the Intel team they purchased after they stopped buying Intel modems. So yeah, so let's go through all the rumors. Now, once again, you will see here that a lot of like renders and stuff haven't really been updated with stuff that actually matters. Now, USB-C obviously here, but the iPhone 15 Ultra and the Pro models in general are supposed to get a more rounded back. Where do we have that? Yeah, that's design. So the regular 15 models will look similar to the iPhone 14 models, but they will get the pill and hole cut out as the dynamic island on the front. But the Pro models are supposed to be getting a titanium chassis and curved edges. And this is where, like, there's so little, like, good renders on that. It's kind of crazy. Usually the Apple community is pretty quick when it comes to stuff like that. So it will get a titanium chassis. Titanium, for those of you who don't know, is both lighter and more durable than stainless steel. So no matter what, it will result in the iPhone getting lighter, which is much needed because in my opinion the 14 and 13 Pro Max are just a tad too heavy. While when you compare it to something like the 10s Max or 11 Pro Max, even to a degree the 12 Pro Max, but the 12 Pro Max already had like those more sharp edges. Like that combination of sharp edges and high weight, in my opinion, makes it far less comfortable than like the iPhone 10, 10s, and 11 design, which, yeah, like I know a lot of people like wanted for Apple to go with back to like the iPhone 4, iPhone 5 design, but in my opinion, rounded will still be better for a smartphone that you hold in your hand, sometimes hours on end through the day. So, and they are saying it will have back edges that will be rounded off, similar to the casing on the 2021 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now, that's a very good comparison for those of you who have tried out those models. Is they're supposed to have, they do have a flat top and a rounded bottom. Obviously, we don't have like front and back in the same way as on the iPhone, but you could basically like miniaturize it, replace the aluminum through titanium, then add glass to the back, then add the cameras, miniaturize it again, and then you basically have the iPhone. But that's obviously like, it's just saying flat front, rounded back. We did get some recent rumors on it supposedly having a rounder front as well. Whether it applies to the actual screen or just to basically the front glass, similar to how the iPhone 10 up to 11 were rounded, I have no idea, and I just hope it's not true. So when we are starting with my realistic wish list, we are talking about a titanium chassis, right? We are talking about a rounded back, but definitely a flat front. I want just an immersive screen with actually a little bit of bezel. I don't need smaller bezels than on the iPhone 14. Like, it just feels good. There are no accidental inputs. It just feels so good. I want to keep that part and then just make the back part that I grab my hand around feel much better. So then, based on the rumors, we are also talking about solid state volume and power buttons. Now, it should be mentioned that rumors like that can sometimes apply to a more futuristic model, like maybe not one that's coming out this year, but maybe in 2024 or even 2025. Or maybe something that will be cancelled anyway. So we've had that time and time again, basically with Touch ID, where Touch ID was supposed to be included, and then by the time the model where Touch ID was supposedly delayed to, by that point Face ID got like other modes where it supported masks, where it got faster, and by that point Touch ID wasn't necessary, so all the Touch ID rumors became basically garbage. And we don't know if that will apply to the solid state volume and power button rumors. They're also comparing it to the Force Touch trackpad on the MacBooks, and we don't yet know if it will apply to all models across the board. Like, it sounds like a kind of redesign that maybe just goes all in with the new design of the 15 Pro, which should be mentioned that the regular 15 will not get that kind of redesign. So I'm actually for it. I'm just gonna call it solid state buttons. And my argument for that is that Apple knows how to do them. Like, I know some people are complaining, like, how are you gonna achieve stuff like recovery mode, but there I trust Apple. Like, they will not break their devices just to include something that is actually more expensive than before. And part of why I want it is that it's supposed to come with 2 additional Taptic engines. Now, Taptic engines on the iPhones are already best in class, but some other phones have been catching up a little bit. So having 2 new ones across the device, now we would have one probably still at the bottom next to the battery. Then we would have 2 higher up, one on the left where the volume buttons are, and one on the right where the power button is. And you would basically have like a 360-degree Taptic engine inside the iPhone that would feel incredibly immersive. But then again, it's also the iPhone, and adding cost and taking away space from inside the phone, it's kind of difficult to say, right? So I'm all for it if the space is, if no compromises on battery size, cooling, etc. Right? So we want that internal space to be very usable. We wanted the device to be still very powerful. We don't want no like what Samsung did, for example, when they started including the S Pen on the S series of phones. They've dramatically reduced the quality of the speaker, and obviously I don't want for that to happen with Apple. And that is part of what I want, and that a lot of people will hate, and that is no SIM card slot worldwide, because I wanted to maximize internal space, right? This has always been Apple's like mantra, their motto. Like, they eliminate stuff they don't see as necessary. I understand eSIM is not very good in some parts of the world yet, but if Apple doesn't take that step, nobody will take that step, and I will die on that hill. Apple was right to get rid of the 3.5mm headphone jack. Apple will be right to completely get rid of the SIM card slot. Now, they did get rid of it on the US version. However, it's important to remember that because they obviously designed just one iPhone for the entire world, maybe with some small changes based on cellular, that they couldn't actually fill up that space on the US version without making like the US version much better than the other iPhones. So it basically has like a dummy SD card slot that is still filled. So yeah, I want that space to be used isn't maximize like supposed to be written with a Z, by the way? Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. No? Okay. Interesting. I'm very proficient in English, guys, but sometimes some words that I obviously don't write in like my everyday life, like they can escape me. So I'm sorry for that. Sorry for the deviation, but yeah, I want this SIM card slot to go away. Again, anybody who really still wants an iPhone, you can argue maybe Apple should still include the SIM card slot on the regular 15 series, which won't see such a dramatic redesign. So the internal space will still be probably very similar to the 14 series, but the iPhone 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max / Ultra absolutely need to get rid of the SIM card slot, partially because we will be actually getting more components that take up space, and we will get to that later. So no Touch ID. Yes, no Touch ID. I don't care. Touch ID will not be making my wish list. Face ID works just fine. I will just say that it's better Face ID that I want, especially with masks. The mask recognition can be a little hit and miss, and for my work, I work at the hospital, I still need to wear masks all the time, and here in Berlin, I still wear masks in public transport. So make Face ID better, just use whatever resources you need for that. No Touch ID unless it can like be super cheap and basically not take up any space. USB-C, I profoundly agree that we need USB-C, but we need also fast USB-C, whether it's 10, 20, or even 40 gigabits per second, which would be in line with Thunderbolt 4. However, I don't think that we will actually get a Thunderbolt like chip inside, because Apple probably doesn't want to pay that money to Intel for every iPhone 15 Ultra. But I do want USB-C to be faster than USB 2, which is what is powering Lightning, and we even got like Lightning based on USB 3 back with the original iPad Pro. But then no iPhone ever got it. So I don't need it to be much faster than 5 gigabits per second. I would prefer it to be 10 or 20 so that I can take videos and transfer them really quickly to my Mac. But who cares, right? Um, I think as long as it's much faster than before, we don't necessarily need Thunderbolt, because Thunderbolt also has like some other requirements in terms of power delivery and stuff. So I'm happy with just having a much faster USB port that is Type C, that works with my iPad, works with my MacBook. And hopefully it comes alongside accessories like AirPods Pro, and AirPods Max, and whatever else still needs updates to USB-C, kind of like we saw with the Siri remote. It works very well to switch it to USB-C. Data transfer speeds, again, yeah, they're saying if Apple offers Thunderbolt, it will go to 40 gigabits per second. Again, I don't actually think that it would be sustainable. It would create too much heat unless they have like a crazy efficient chip. But yeah. So periscope camera lens. I will call it better zoom. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, I do want to have the best possible 3 to 4x zoom on a phone. Like, I care very little about 6, 8, 10x zooms, because that's simply not the kind of zoom range at which I take photos. So I want, if Apple includes periscope, to still have a regular 3, maybe 4x zoom, either as the base, and I will get to how that would work. Or more importantly, I just put 2 zoom lenses, but make the main 3x zoom, give it a much larger sensor, a wider aperture, fully optimize the algorithms, like maybe use some data from the 1x lens to feed like more light to the 3x lens. So yeah, I will call it 3 to 4x priority. 6 to 8x, this is supposed to be like the zoom range. Nice to have. But yeah, those periscope lenses take up a lot of space. Now, what you will see in my thumbnail is the newest LG lens. And that is an improvement, because the LG lenses have variable zoom, right? Variable zoom, not fixed. And that is partially like they can move like between, like, let's say 5 and like 8x to zoom in really optically. Like, you don't have like just one fixed zoom range, and that is what I want, because in my opinion, especially if you like get it on like the 3x lens, which for example Sony has, that in my opinion is the best thing. If I can like zoom from like 3x to 5x with a fully optical variable zoom, that is what I want in a zoom camera. Then I want just that one zoom camera with the best possible lens, with the best possible sensor, and then don't waste extra space on like another 6 to 8x zoom. We can use software for zooming beyond 5 or even 6x, depending on how variable the zoom actually is. But yeah, that is my priority for the camera, except for better HDR on main sensor. Now, I would expect it to also be better across other sensors, but we did get rumors of an even larger sensor. Whether it will be 48 megapixels or maybe like switch to 64 remains to be seen. There is supposedly like a 50 megapixel sensor, and Apple would use like 48. That is just much better at HDR. It's a little bigger, so it also works like better with low light in general. And that is what I want. And it's supposedly what is also coming to the new Pixel. And that would obviously be strong competition for the iPhone in terms of camera. I also want better ultra wide. But I don't need it to be dramatically better. I understand there are size and cost considerations, so I essentially want it to be better in low light, right? I have the 13 Pro Max, I've tried the 14 Pro, and it's definitely better in that regard, but I still need it to be like 10-15% better, because consider that also if you're dramatically improving the low light capabilities of the main lens, then ultra wide will start sucking more in comparison. So yeah, those are my consideration for the camera. Should be important to note that I don't want 8K. Like I just don't want no beyond 10x zoom or any other garbage like that, because that will eat into like it will basically cost internal resources, like having to optimize the codec for 8K so it doesn't take up too much storage. It will also like create some artifacting, because in order to actually get like full native 8K output in like low light, the smartphones really suck at that. That's a lot of data. So you will basically be better off just having 4K, using 4 pixels, where with 8K you would be using just one, and aggregate that light to have like maybe a little lesser peak sharpness, but much better dynamic range, support for higher frame rates, and just a better video experience. So that is what I want. I don't have many expectations for like video in general, because iPhones are already so far beyond what most other phones are offering. Well, while the others might have like one camera that shoots like good video, right? Or but then it's like sucks in low light, and then another phone might have a great camera but then a sucky microphone. Or the differences between like the 3 lenses or 4 or 5 lenses on some phones are so different that you basically have to like take mental stops whenever you want to change the lens and what you're photographing. So yeah, I'm very happy with video. I don't want Apple to waste space, time on those kind of things, and I don't especially want like a telephoto lens that is supposed to be optimized for like 100x like creeper zoom. That's not what I want, and I doubt that most people will actually use it that way. So in the end, that would be 3 to 4 cameras based on if zoom is variable. So if zoom is variable, I will be happy with 3 cameras. If zoom is not variable and they do prioritize a periscope zoom, I still want them to keep around 3x and actually make the primary 3 to 4x zoom much better in quality. So yeah, they're talking about like the camera sensors here. I've already mentioned a lot of it. Like they're mentioning like Sony's latest photodiodes and transistor in separate layers architectures, which is supposed to dramatically improve like HDR. But yeah, I basically like it's as good as it gets. I'm sure that Apple will not get like the biggest sensor ever, because that's not how they roll. They still want to optimize their software more. They do want to have more internal space and some cost savings. So I expect it to be great, but I don't expect it to necessarily use like the absolute cutting edge tech, for example, like variable zoom. But I'm happy with what is currently rumored. So X70 modem, I believe, is supposed to be, or is it now that it's like, yeah, so X70 modem, I'm perfectly fine with that. There are some AI optimizations for faster processing speeds. I wonder how much that actually matters. Apple has had like very good antennas over the last couple of years after having some of the worst antennas on high-end phones, so I'm very happy with that anyway. But if the chip does some of it by itself, that's great. Eventually I would prefer an Apple-made modem, but it's not the case for this year. Now, 3nm chip, yes, 3nm A17 to be precise. I do want it to be mostly like on the same core layout. We've had a lot of success with like 2 high performance cores. Oh, I'm sorry guys, 4 high efficiency cores. This video is already much longer than I expected, and I don't know if I'm even halfway through it. 3 nanometer, much more efficient. I would prefer it to be N3E, which is the enhanced version of the 3 nanometer node, but it likely will be the first N3 node, which is N3 just by itself, or you can also call it N3B from what I understand. It does increase performance, as they say, by 10 to 15%, by also reducing power consumption by up to 35%. That is simply not true, by the way. That is not how it works. You won't get 15% more performance while reducing power by 35%. What you could get is 15% more performance while, let's say, you reduce power by 20%, or just 15, or even just 10%. Or what you could get is the same performance, but with 35% less power. However, that is also garbage, because they're saying it's 3 nanometer, right? But it's 3 nanometer. Those comparisons here are versus N5. This is the node that we've had in the A14, not even the A15, and certainly not the A16, basically the first generation 5 nanometer node. Since then, we already got N5P, which is like 5% better, and then N4P, which is another 5% better, and then we have N4, which is basically identical to N5P, and basically only exists to like confuse naming. So at best, we will see like those 10 to 15% increases, but we might see them at the power equilibrium, basically, and as those 35% go to powering those 15% and then are eaten up by the in-between node steps like N5P and N4P that we already got. So N3 will be a much smaller step than I think a lot of people are expecting, especially versus the A16. And we are getting the A17 on the Pros and the Ultra here, but we will probably be getting the A16, which is on some kind of variant of 4 nanometer on the base 15. So I expect performance to increase, like gonna go like here. I will actually believe in like a 10 to 15% more CPU performance at same power draw, maybe slightly less. I expect it to have better sustained performance while keeping around the same cooling performance. Basically 3 nanometer should still be better than 5 nanometer, and we are getting probably a new architecture, which is not really necessary, but like ARMv9. Apple already implemented a lot of like the cache and AI changes from ARMv9 basically while still on ARMv8. So this is a very nerdy spec point that most people will not care about. I expect GPU performance to be like 25 to 35% better, and I expect it to be primarily based on a new architecture. My God, why cannot I type in the word performance today? With ray tracing, so ray tracing accelerated hardware. That is important, not because I actually want to play ray tracing games, but because I want that architecture to eventually make its way to the MacBooks, where it will also be able to use for like Blender and other applications in general. And I'm sure, just as we always see with like Apple's neural engine and stuff, that Apple introduces new features to the chip, but then they're also very aggressive in actually utilizing them. So I wouldn't be surprised if like ray tracing is then used for some kinds of improvements to maybe like even photography, right? So just in general, better A&E, ISP, but basically those features to me like they don't matter much. I don't think we are in any way performance constraints with the current neural engine. And I think the ISP basically has the task to bring whatever camera we have to life in the best way. And I think Apple will, as per usual, do that. Staying hydrated. It's been over half an hour. My God. So, where does it take us? Well, I would want 8 gigs of RAM. I could type in like 12 or 16, right? Because it's a wish list. I don't care. Honestly, like I've never had RAM problems. Like I've had some RAM problems on my 4 GB iPhone XS Max, but that was primarily linked to like some bad betas. And on the 6 GB iPhone 13 Pro Max, I never had like website reloading issues. And I do have 8 gigs of RAM on my iPad Pro, my M1 version, and I just think it's phenomenal. And just because it's a wish list, just give it Stage Manager, right? It has 8 gigs of RAM, it has a powerful new chip, it's plenty efficient. Maybe you put it into some kind of dock with a fan to maximize sustained performance, and bada bing bada boom, you get the same Stage Manager as on the iPad Pro, which would require Thunderbolt according to Apple's logic, but as long as I think it's like USB 4, it still would be good enough. So before we go too crazy, that is basically, let's say 8 to 12 GB, right? We don't need 16. Having too much crap in your RAM will eat into battery life as well, but this is still better than what we have right now. I want it to be LPDDR5X, which is like 8200 megahertz or something like that. But LPDDR5, so many D's, right? LPDDR5 is more likely, right? So we are gonna stay more realistic here, but yeah. This is what we're supposed to get, and there are rumors that we will be getting then 8 GB of LPDDR5X the year after that, and maybe the year after that, like even more than 8 gigs of RAM. Oh god, guys, I'm shortly coming out of breath, right? Like, yeah, they once again mention it's 8 GB. Yeah, I believe I haven't typed in too many DDUs. Yes. Oh yeah, they're saying the same thing, so I remember it right. Pricing, now let me say it. Same price as before. Lower in Europe. Now that the euro is up 8% versus the price equilibrium that it hit like with the dollar, where they were 1-to-1, it's now 1.084 or something like that. And that price needs to be changed. If the iPhone is still going to be $999 and $1099 respectively, the 15 Ultra might actually justify a higher price now than the Pro, but yeah, let's put it like that. If higher on the Ultra, same price in Europe, right? So we want it to basically like reflect those currency changes. But then again, Apple just like 2 days ago like made the HomePod Mini more expensive in euro. So yeah, F me, right? And my expectations in that regard. Release date September, and then we have like beyond the iPhone 15 some expectations to under display. I don't care about that, to be quite honest. Like if we go to some design stuff, right? I want a dynamic island better notification support, right? We want more system level notifications in Dynamic Island to actually show up. This is a software feature that I'm asking for, and that I hope will also obviously come to iPhone 14 Pro and then base iPhone 15 users as well. So this is not me going all crazy here, right? The same is with the rounded back and the flat front. Like some would say, like, yeah, like a rounded front is like more immersive or anything. I think the market outside of China has widely like rejected like super curvy displays. The solid state buttons in general, I know some people will call them gimmicks. I personally love gimmicks like that. No SIM card slot. What I would say, like, use the space for battery, speakers, chip cooling, etc. Right? So I don't just want Apple to remove the SIM card slot like to piss people off. I actually want that space to be better used. Again, so we do have all those different camera specs, and we now have 3 people watching, so happy you are here. Feel free to comment. I'm basically at the end, so you can rewatch the video later. I saw that like most like tuned in the last couple of minutes. So we do have the better zoom, which I would prefer to be variable. Again, this technology already exists, and it will already even has like some optimizations on the latest Snapdragon chips to actually support it. So this is not something unrealistic, but I kind of expect it to actually come to the iPhone 16, right? So better HDR on main sensor. This is supposed to be actually a big point from using a new Sony sensor. So this is not something unrealistic. I'm not asking for like a crazy resolution jump. Maybe like better quality at HEVC, right? So I'm currently using like Pro RAW for most of my photo capturing, and like even on my 13 Pro Max, and obviously the pictures are much larger in size. They are like 30 megabytes for the 13 Pro Max, while on the 14 Pro Max, where Pro RAW goes up to 48 megapixels, basically using the native resolution of the sensor, then you can sometimes get 80, 100, 120 megapixel megabyte files. We want that to be we don't want RAW to be reduced. I think we just want better quality options for HEVC. Better ultra wide in low light. Again, no wasting time on like no 8K or beyond 10x zoom stuff. 3 to 4 cameras. Also, like, partially why I'm always like giving like caveats is because I want internal space to be used well, and I want the phone itself to feel good. I don't want it to get hot. So I kind of am always very careful in what I actually recommend, because I don't want the device to just be like 400 grams in the end or something like that, right? I don't need a foldable iPhone from this version. I don't want anything crazy. Like let's go back to like the regular screen even, right? I just mentioned Dynamic Island, but like I still want ProMotion. I still want OLED, like high sustained brightness, especially on cellular, right? This is when you're outside and when you're using like the screen at max brightness, you're using your modem, maybe you're playing a game. I want basically the cooling of the phone to be so good that the sustained brightness is still very high. Now the new iPhone does go up to 2000 nits, and I don't need a higher brightness than that, but I want it to be sustained for longer. So we can add that to like the 3 nanometer chip, so I can just call it like better cooling on the device, or at least just use more efficient components while keeping at least the same amount of cooling. The iPhone 14 series did get better cooling capabilities than the previous generations. Whether the best solution is like a vapor chamber design or something else, I'm not an expert on that. So X70 modem. Yeah, that is also important. Wi-Fi 6E is an absolute must. Wi-Fi 7 is preferred, right? I want to have the latest Wi-Fi technology. Bluetooth, again, I don't care. iPhones primarily use like Bluetooth for authentication. So yeah, like use the latest Wi-Fi standards. It all like Bluetooth even has like more than enough bandwidth for like AirPods Pro transfer rates. But yeah, this is what I want. I want just maybe like with the latest headset, we will have the need for like faster transfer speeds from your phone, and preferably like the newest Wi-Fi modem would also be more efficient in general. So yeah, that's about what I want. Again, like I don't expect crazy performance enhancements, but I expect it to come like peak performance to still come at the same power level, while less demanding tasks will probably use less. Which also includes like the option to have better sustained performance, especially if you have other stuff that is adding heat or consuming power. ARMv9 is nice, but once again, not really a necessity. I want new features for the GPU, like ray tracing, and just across the board better A&E, ISP, and media engines. Partially why I want that is because I just always expect Apple to improve those, and just as somebody who's used basically most iPhones, there's always some improvement that you can feel, even if like the overall chip performance maybe didn't increase that much. Alongside with higher performance, we need a little more RAM to feed it, and then maybe we have some fun new features like Stage Manager, and hopefully this will not increase prices dramatically, right? So this is my iPhone 15 Ultra somewhat realistic wish list, and basically also like a rumor summary. I apologize for having here a lot of the ads in the background. Maybe Mac Rumors appreciates it, maybe not, right? Primarily, I do want USB-C, right? That's very important because I do want the simplified lineup. I will probably like hand down my AirPods Pro as well to my mom at that point, and then she will have like the last generation of like Lightning for her with like my iPhone 13 Pro that I will also hand down. Yeah, so this was a crazy long video. I was crazy energized at first, but I'm now really tired now, right? It's 6 a.m. here. So I started at like 5:30 a.m. So you should kind of imagine what my night looked like. I hope you like what I did here. I will try doing something similar for other devices if you enjoy. And I hope we all get the iPhone of our dreams, every device of our dreams, and at the price that is somewhat realistic. And yeah, so leave comments what you want to see next. Leave comments if you like this. Leave comments if you watched it from beginning to end at some point. This is Mark Tech, and I see